Today our gospel gives us a real contrast between Herod and all of those in Jerusalem and these magi, these three kings, these searchers, seekers. In a way, this Feast of Epiphany is the feast of seekers who seek God with sincerity, with perseverance. These wise men, these magi, come from a far away land. And they come there to Jerusalem and they ask King Herod where they might find this newborn king. Instead of rejoicing with them, instead of Jerusalem being excited and rejoicing, it says all of Jerusalem was troubled. King Herod was troubled. You know, if you've read the story about King Herod, he was kind of the ultimate political survivor. He was a despicable man. You know, he murdered his own family for political purposes. He ruled by threats, corruption. He found his way to the top of the political heap by serving himself with having no morals. Herod was fixed and determined on being powerful and retaining that power when he got it. And for so many people, you know, that's where the real action is. And so there in Jerusalem, they would have been watching Herod's every move, trying to learn how he does this, trying to emulate him. And yet what St. Matthew is telling us is that Herod is a pathetic figure against what is of true importance, what is really important in history. You know, Herod is the one that had the temple rebuilt. When you go to visit the Holy Land, you still see remains of the things that Herod built, which were really mostly temples to himself. And against Herod, we see contrasted these magi who are oblivious to the games of politicians and their ambitions. And so instead of focusing on and being fascinated by the great political figures, whether it be Herod or Caesar or whoever, they could care less. They were interested, they were focused on watching and looking for signs of God. They were prayerfully attentive. They were paying attention to the right story. And they had to come, they had to see. Now, I recently heard that the Lord of the Rings had been made into, they've done a new revision, remastered it in 4K or whatever they call that. I was really happy to hear that because it's one of my favorite movies, my favorite set of books. One of the things that the Lord of the Rings teaches us is that when good people seek to do what is right, to walk the path of God, we should expect opposition. We're going to have struggles and battles along the way. These wise men, these magi come seeking this newborn king. And notice what Herod does. Herod is very subtle. He's not directly trying to corrupt them. He's putting obstacles in their journey, and he's trying to use them, manipulate them. And so in our struggles with our spiritual lives, we're going to have folks that are going to try manipulate and twist our journey. There's going to be circumstances and situations that block the true path that we should be on. And it could be work, could even be family, could be our own inner desires for something that is not truly of God. So these Magi continue on their journey despite this manipulation and these obstacles that's put in their way. Now imagine what they must have thought when they come to this simple stable. They're seeking the newborn king. No doubt they were probably advisors to kings, or they come from obviously immense wealth. In those days, to undertake a journey of even 100 miles was very perilous. But to be traveling in a group with great treasure is like having a big bullseye on you. So at great peril and at great expense, they come looking for this newborn king. And where do they find him? Not surrounded by guards, not being celebrated by the populace, by the people he comes to reveal himself to. Instead, they find him with his mother and his foster father in a stable. They may have been surprised, but they were not deterred. They had been paying attention. They were spiritually alert. They had their eyes open to deeper realities than what the eyes can see. Part of what this story is contrasting is two very different ways of seeing the world. And we need to hear this message. I need to hear this message. We all need to hear this message. We have Herod and all of Jerusalem seeing this story from one perspective, from the eyes of the world, the eyes of the worldly. So they see it as some type of threat. Then we have these Magi who are seeing it in a spiritual way. Their eyes are fixed on spiritual realities, things that are beyond our senses, that we can only really see with the heart. So there they come before this newborn king. You know, the Herods are still with us. They're still all around us. And when we seek out Christ, when we seek out the way of truth, the way of holiness, we've got to expect opposition. These Magi come there before the Lord, and they prostrate themselves. They do him homage. They are the first in the Gospels to do this. It was not the wise and the holy, the learned and the clever of Jerusalem. It was not the priests and the scribes and the Pharisees. No, it was the simple shepherds who come to worship him, and then these Magi says prostrate themselves. That means they come to give themselves to this newborn king, to pledge themselves and their lives and their loyalty to him. A prostration is not something you would even do before a king in that day. You would only do that in the presence of divinity. See, the only proper response to recognizing the true king, the true Lord, is to lay our lives before him. So we ask the Lord to help us to imitate these Magi, to see the world as God sees it, to see the world through the eyes of Jesus, to see the underlying spiritual realities that are all around us, to lay our lives down as we give ourselves to this God who gives himself to us. So we see this great contrast in the gospel today and in this story. Let us ask our Lord that we might have the eyes, the willingness to seek, and then when we find, to give our lives completely to what God desires for us.